body. I work out. Girl, look at that body. Girl, look at that body. Girl, look at that body. I work out when I walk in the spot. This is what I see. Everybody stops and is staring at me. I got passion in my pants and I ain't afraid to show it. Show it, show it, show it. I'm sexy and I know. And I know it. When I walk in the spot, this is what I see. Everybody stops and is staring at me. I got passion in my pants and I ain't afraid to show it, show it, show it, show it. I'm sexy and I know it. Hey. I'm sexy and I know it. Check it out. Check it out. Yeah. Yeah. Girl, look at that body. 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 Work out when I walk in the spot. This is what I see. Everybody stops and is staring at me. I got passion in my pants and I ain't afraid to show it, show it, show it, show it. I'm sexy and I know. Hey. I'm sexy and I know it. Check it out. Check it out. Hey. I'm sexy and I know it. I'm sexy and I know it. Hey. Yeah. I'm sexy and I know it. Check it out. Check it out. Wiggle, 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 sexy and I know it.
Sure. Hello? Hello? Okay, now you can hear me. Sorry, I had to adjust things because I don't have my headset anymore. But we are going to be reading Chapter 3 of Touch of Magic. Bit of trampsta and gay to start your day off right. So Chapter 3, Jai. The farmer's market was my one indulgence, the one place I shored up my energy to go to every second Sunday. The place wasn't huge, which was always a bonus, and though there were around 20 booths in all, I had a few favorites that I stuck to minimize my exertion. The fresh produce here was to die for, and the homemade bath salts and soaps from Nana Maze always helped with my sore muscles and aches. I loved living in Missvale. It wasn't a huge town, but there were enough people that not everyone was in everyone else's business. Missvale had an old 1920s feel to it, and it was a mismatch of old and new buildings. Even though I'd lived here for my whole life, I'd yet to see every part of it. I knew the market and the shopping center like the back of my hand, but other than that, there were only a few places I'd been to, one of which was the hospital. As I walked through the crowd, keeping a steady pace as I headed towards the Fruity Foods booth, I wondered what Raphael was up to. After he'd given me his number, I'd spent the past 2 days almost texting him before chickening out at the last moment. It wasn't that I didn't like him or I wasn't interested in getting to know him better. It was just that I was scared. I was scared of hoping again. I was scared that if I spent more than a few minutes with him at a time, he'd realize how boring and fucked up I was, and he'd give up like everyone else. Even though it had been awkward both times, I'd enjoyed talking to him. I didn't want my illness to steal another possible friend from me like it always did, and the only way to make sure of that was to keep Raphael at a distance. Yet, my fingers still itched to pull out my phone and send him a text. What if I texted him but didn't hang out with him? Could a friendship like that work? It worked with my online best friend Cassian, but then again, us meeting up was impossible unless pre-planned, so it wasn't like I was intentionally avoiding him. It wouldn't be the same if I did that to Raphael, would it? I shook my head as I bought some apples, trying my best to keep my mind blank. It was no use thinking about the what-ifs. I knew I'd break sooner or later. I would end up texting him, and then we'd hang out a few times if I was lucky. Raphael would soon realize that there was no way we could be friends, and then he'd disappear like every other person did before him. And I'd have to avoid him for as long as we were neighbors. At least I wouldn't be so lonely for the next few days, though, right? That had to count for something. Now, we switched to Raphael. Raphael. It was not my fault. It was not my fault that the moment I stepped into the clearing that hosted the farmer's market, my eyes strayed towards Jai and latched onto him as if I'd been looking for him. I had no clue how I spotted him. It was as if some part of me was already in tune with him, even though we barely knew each other. He hadn't texted me. I wanted to believe it was because he was trying to build up the courage, and not because he wasn't interested in getting together. But it could be either of those reasons. He'd been almost reluctant to talk to me. I thought it was because of his illness. I'd heard something in his voice when he told me about it, as if he expected me to make a big deal out of it. Luckily for me, I'd already known he was sick from our first meeting, so it had been easy to act like I didn't care. And I really didn't, at least not in the sense he expected me to. I didn't care that his illness would hinder him from hanging out with me, but I did care that I couldn't heal him. If I wasn't so incompetent, I might have been able to. Then again, I still didn't know the extent of it. If his illness was something he'd had since he was born, or if it was some kind of defect in his organs, then it was possible even my parents wouldn't be able to make him healthier. The healing magic was strange. It could heal stab wounds to the heart, but not illnesses like cancer. I shook my head and startled to a stop as I realized I'd unconsciously started following Jai. What the hell was wrong with me? I was going to end up making the guy think I was some kind of stalker. I kind of was a stalker, wasn't I? And even though I had no ill intent towards him, I didn't want him to think that of me, not after he was already so unwilling to get to know me. I turned around before he could spot me and headed towards my favorite herbs booth. The lady was a nice old mage who grew herbs in her backyard. Not many mages lived out here in the human world, preferring to stay in Ravenshire. There were the nomads, of course, and the adventure enthusiasts, but most of them preferred to live on the island. If it weren't for the way I was treated there, I'd have picked Ravenshire over Missvale any day, too. It wasn't that Missvale wasn't beautiful in its own right, but it didn't come close to the magnificence that was Ravenshire. Plus, it didn't feel like home. I was happy here, though. Even if it had just been 2 weeks and I kind of missed my sister, though it was clear she didn't miss me much, if at all, I felt better about myself than I ever had before. Hopefully, Miss Vale would soon feel like my home. As the lady rang up my purchases, I smiled to myself, knowing I'd be okay. I'd find a way to be happy. I wasn't lacking for money, but I was still hoping to find some kind of job or something just to take up my time. Since I discovered my ability to heal animals, I was thinking about volunteering at some kind of shelter. If animals were all I could heal, then at least I could put my powers to good use. I came to a stop as I reached the exits, and my eyes fell on Jai yet again. He was walking towards the parking lot, a few paper bags clutched in his hands. I'd walked here since the market wasn't far from home, but I knew the distance was probably too much for Jai to walk, especially with all the extra weight. As I watched, Jai got on his knees, fishing around under the car. He must have dropped his keys, I realized, even as my feet started taking me in his direction before I'd made a decision to approach him. Then again, I couldn't let the opportunity go, could I? We need to stop meeting like this, Jai, I said, amusement lacing every word. Jai's head shot up, his eyes widening slightly as he swore under his breath. We really do, he mumbled as he finally found his keys and got to his feet, dusting off his knees. What are you doing here? I raised my hand so he could see the bag I was holding and rest assured that I wasn't stalking him. I really wasn't. Getting some herbs for my teas. What about you? Just some groceries and stuff. He got a thoughtful look on his face as he eyed the bag in my hand before looking up at me. Was the tea you made that day herbal too? Because after I left your house, I felt way less tired than I should have, especially after getting hurt. My brows furrowed as I tried to remember. It had been ginger and honey, nothing special, so why would... My thoughts screeched to a halt. It couldn't be, could it? My magic didn't work on humans or mages. It couldn't be possible that it worked on him when it had never worked on anyone else, right? What other reason could there be? It could have been a coincidence, but I didn't believe in coincidences. But it couldn't be my magic. My magic was weak and useless. It was practically nothing. How could it have helped him? Only one way to figure out. It was, actually. I'm glad I helped. If you ever need more of it, come by whenever. I'd be happy to make it for you. Or you could just give me the ingredients, Jai offered, and I almost rolled my eyes at him, but opted to wink instead. Nah, how would I lure you back then? At least if you wanted the tea, you would drop by sometime. Jai looked away, biting his lower lip as he did. His skin was a nice tan color and seemed almost golden under the slight sunshine. Yeah. Even without the red staining his cheeks, I could tell he was blushing by the way he averted his eyes. Oh, can you give me a lift? I could walk back, but really, how would you feel watching me trudge along the path while you drove in your car with the air conditioner on? Jai chuckled lightly as he shook his head, but my joke made him look back up at me. I shot him a smile as he opened the passenger side door and waved me inside. So gentlemanly, I couldn't help quipping as he shut the door, and he rolled his eyes at me again before putting the bags in the trunk and climbing inside. I'm sorry, it's just... This book is so funny. So what do you say about coming over to mine so I can make you some tea? Maybe we could watch a movie or something. Only if you want to, though, I added as I remembered the fact that he hadn't texted me. Maybe I should take the hint and back off. Maybe his reluctance had nothing to do with him and everything to do with me. Maybe he simply wasn't interested, and I was being a jerk trying to hang on to him. I'll need to drop the groceries at home and let Padfoot out first, Jai said as he started the car, and I breathed out a sigh of relief as butterflies fluttered in my belly. It had been so long since I'd just hung out with someone, without wondering if they really liked me, or if they were just waiting for a chance to bully me about my powers. Hell, I couldn't even remember the last time I dated someone, much less gone on a date. Not that this was a date, of course. You can bring Padfoot with us if you want. He can play in the backyard. Jai shot me a wide smile, making me realize yet again that he was really close to Padfoot. The way he'd panicked the other day when Padfoot had escaped had told me just as much. You really love Padfoot, don't you? I mused aloud, and Jai smiled somewhat sadly as he stared out the front. Yeah, He's the only one who never gets tired of me. Sooner or later, everyone does. But he has stuck with me for 3 years now, and he loves me just as much as he did in the beginning. He almost sounded like he was warning me that I'd get tired of him. If he was about to be very surprised. I'd lived under the thumbs of bullies for more than a century. I had a well of patience, and I'd be only too happy to use it for someone like Jai. It hadn't been long since we met, but even so, I already felt more at ease with him than I had with anyone other than my sister for my whole life. There was something about Jai that called to me on a deeper level. If what he'd said was true, he needed my powers to feel better, and I needed his presence. It seemed like we could have the perfect deal. If I could prove for certain that my powers really did work on him, that it hadn't just been a fluke or wishful thinking. I remembered the way my magic had rushed towards him the 2 times I'd touched him. That, along with what Jai had said, was enough to light up that old hope in me, the hope that I wasn't completely useless and that my magic could be good for something. I just hoped it wouldn't be another red herring. I was really tired of hoping for things that never came to be. And that's the end of chapter 3. I'm enjoying this as like part of my morning routine. So some of these chapters will be shorter than others. I think the first one was like 30 minutes. Second was like 20 minutes, and this third one was like 15 minutes. But I will continue doing this. And in fact, hold on. I'm going to